Welcome everyone to the payments breakout session of our plug and play event. First up, we're going to be discussing claim digital payment transformation through implementing a digital payments into a carrier's claim system. After our presentations and discussions here, we'll be having a live Q&A with both presenters. So to get us started, I want to briefly introduce myself. My name is David Boddy. I'm the Vice President of Snapsheet Payments, and I'm really excited to be hosting this session on implementing digital claim payments into a carrier's claim system. So joining me today, I'm very excited to have Jeff Obermeyer from the Director of Strategic Initiatives at Mutual of Enumclaw for this discussion. Jeff, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. As David mentioned, my name is Jeff Obermeyer. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at Mutual of Enumclaw, which we simply refer to as MO. My responsibilities include serving as the product owner for both our ClaimCenter and our Snapsheet payments implementations. And I've been in the insurance business for about 20 years, since back in the days when issuing a check meant filling out a paper form and putting it in a CSA's mailbox and having them issue the check for you. So definitely excited about the possibilities that e-payments is offering to us today.
Perfect. So thanks, Jeff, for that. And I think with that, we'll just dive right in. We want to start by giving everyone an overview and level setting based on where Mo's previous state was, and then some of the requirements for a claims payments partner as well.
Right. So prior to working with Snapsheet for payments, we were in kind of a similar situation to a lot of P&C carriers. We had an aging legacy system. And so in 2018, we partnered with Guidewire to do a complete transformational conversion over to ClaimCenter version 9, with an emphasis of maintaining an out-of-the-box approach to ensure a fast development. So we were able to get that development completely done and get our first claim in ClaimCenter within the first 10.5 months after the project started. And then, for us, everything comes back to service. Mo prides itself on service. It's our stated vision to deliver a rare and valuable experience to our members for generations to come. And that's something we've been doing for over 120 years. And, we're partnered with a network of independent agents who we also consider to be our customers. So really servicing both the customer and the member is key to everything that we do. And as we've worked on improving our claims operations over the last several years, we've gotten some consistent feedback that customers and agents were really looking for more ways to receive payment and ways for us to get them their money faster. So prior to partnering with Snapsheet and KeyBank, all of our claims payments were issued on paper checks. And the overwhelming majority of those checks were printed out of our home office location in Enumclaw, Washington. So relying on mail for check delivery really adds to your cycle time. And having all of our printing centralized in one location represented a business continuity risk in the event that we were unable to access our home office print facility. And certainly that's a situation that was really front of mind as the COVID situation evolved during the course of the year. And we were very grateful to have some additional payment options that were being offered via ACH and Push-to-debit. So given the desire for more payment options, reduced cycle time, and broader business continuity options, Mo was seeking a business partner who could help them in all of these areas with payments. So really, we had 4 kind of key main requirements that we were looking for in a payment partner. And the first was the ability to seamlessly integrate with ClaimCenter using APIs and webhooks. ClaimCenter offers a ton of extra technology and opportunity for us that our legacy system didn't, and we wanted to take advantage of that. But in so doing, we also wanted to minimize the impact on our claims handlers, and we wanted to give them kind of a seamless process for payment issuing that mirrored the way that they issued checks today. And then in addition to all of that, we also needed to maintain data integrity and have all of our financial data accurate and correct within both the claims system and our data warehouse. Second, we needed a partner that really understood insurance and specifically the challenges of claims payments. There's a lot of providers out there who can offer e-payment solutions, but most of them don't have direct specific experience within the insurance world and specifically within the claims world. So with digital payments being completely new to us at Mo Claims, it was really important that we had a business partner who not only had all the tools to handle all of our needs, but could also understand how we would potentially be using the products to pay our members and to vendors and to make multi-party payments. Third, we wanted multiple payment options such as ACH and Push-to-debit, and we wanted to get them from a single source. We didn't want to have multiple vendors providing different payment rails. So we viewed ACH as kind of our standard e-payment. That would be where we would go to most of the time, but we also recognize that the additional speed that something like push-to-debit offered gives us opportunities for even better service when it calls for it, like in emergency situations such as total loss fires. And certainly we used push-to-debit e-payments extensively with the recent wildfires out here in the West, and it was a really big benefit to be able to get people those $2,500 advances literally within less than 10 minutes of them talking to us on the phone. And then lastly, we wanted a vendor who could assist us with claim vendor payments. So we wanted a partner who could really assist us in enrolling our existing pool of vendors and handle the verification process of the W-9s and such, and help enroll them into the program so that we could start paying our regular vendors electronically.
Perfect. Yeah. And from our engagement with Mo, Snapsheet could not have asked for a better partner to work with on bringing this payments transformation to fruition and integration as well. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about the high-level architecture and integration process and approach. So before the demonstration here, and you'll see kind of all this live in action with Jeff shortly, just going to do a high-level architecture overview. So in the payment flow, the first action is a payment creation in Guidewire by a Mo claims associate. After that payment is created and meets all the internal authority controls, the payment information is sent to Snapsheet via API. It's at that point that that payment is then created in the Snapsheet system. And for two items can happen. One, which I'll show next, is we let Guidewire know back that the payment has been created and the status as well. Second is our pre-integration, out-of-the-box integration with KeyBank for processing of the payment and execution of that as well. So the step two here, that's really upon payment creation and any payment actions that are taken that Snapsheet is made aware of is pushing that information back via API and webhooks into Guidewire. So having Guidewire and the claims associates have all that payment information right at the tips of their fingers. Step three is utilizing the existing reporting channel and services from Guidewire to a data warehouse or a financial system, again, utilizing that existing channel. And then four is using the existing bank channel as well for any additional bank reconciliation reporting or cash management and those typical items. So that's the high-level architecture overview. Next here, really, we took a phased implementation approach. So step one with this is launching fast. So allowing Mo to utilize our web portal to send out payments, electronic payments, gain experience, and kind of get those quick wins while performing some of the integration work on the other side. So our first API integration was for reconciliation to Guidewire. So that web hook back. That ensured that the reconciliation would be driven through ClaimCenter's existing data flow for all the payment methods, ACH, push-to-debit, and paper check. This webhook, when it was turned on, was even utilizing the web portal as well for entry, and then pushing the information back into Guidewire. Next is with the backend financial reconciliation, is really focusing on payment method enablement. So the first payment method enabled was ACH because it has the most use cases and it can help drive the most value out of the box. Next was enabling push-to-debit. So again, utilizing the same API and integration. This allowed funds and for payees to be posted in as little as 5 minutes we saw on response times from Mo's members. Lastly, rounding out the integration process was the traditional paper check outsourcing to allow an automated paper check process. And then kind of bringing everything together to increase that digital payments universe was multi-party payments. So kind of really driving more workflows for adoption.
Okay, so we're going to show you now a quick demo of what an ACH payment looks like in ClaimCenter. So we've got our claim here for our member, Sarah Rockstar. She had an unfortunate rear-ending accident with another party. And we've already got this claim set up. We've got an exposure set here for her collision damage. We've already got a reserve set on it. And really all we need to do to start the process to make the ACH payment to Sarah is we're going to go up to our actions button. We added a new field for EFT under new transactions. We use that for both ACH and push-to-debit. So I click on that. That's going to take me to our two-step payment wizard. It's really, really simple. So the first field that we fill out is transaction type. This is some Snapsheet specific functionality that will vary depending on whether or not the payee is a company, a vendor, or a person. So in this case, we know we're making a payment to a person, to Sarah. So we'll select person. And We've also set up ClaimCenter so that when I select person, any businesses or vendors that I have in parties involved for this claim are not going to show up on the list. I only have the ability to select people, which again makes it a little bit harder for anybody to make a mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and select Sarah because she's the one we're going to make the payment to. ClaimCenter defaults her to a claimant because she's technically a claimant on the exposure. She's also our insured. I'm going to go ahead and choose to switch this to insured. Really, this is primarily for your internal reporting purposes. It probably isn't going to have any other kind of an impact. Next, we're actually going to select the payment method, ACH or push-to-debit. The only thing that these will affect in terms of any functionality for us, at least in the way that we have it set up, is we have hard caps on the amount that we allow an ACH and a push-to-debit payment to be made for. So an ACH payment can only be paid up to $10,000. Push-to-debit can only be paid up to $2,500. So if a user attempts to make a payment that's above the threshold that's set for the payment method, it'll throw an error and let them know why. So, and it won't let the payment go through. So we've got our primary payee here, Sarah. She came down from above, and we need to have Sarah's email address and her phone number in order to send her the payment email from Snapsheet, and then to use her phone number, sort of like a PIN number, in order for her to validate who she is. But oh shoot, I don't have Sarah's email information. So you're thinking that probably means, oh, I have to cancel my payment, go back to parties involved, enter the information, and come back in and start over. But no, you can set it up so that you don't have to do that. You can just click on Sarah's name here, takes you right to her contact card within parties involved. I'm going to go down and edit this. I'm going to go ahead and use my usual Enumclaw email address, just so this doesn't go off to some random person. And then I'm going to hit update. And when I do, I am right back to the payment wizard exactly where I was. All this information that I pre-filled before is still here. And now I can select Sarah's email address. She did have a phone number in there, so I can go ahead and select that. If I needed to change it, I could do the same thing, click back into here and go enter a new phone number for her if I wanted to. We have tax reporting status as a field that adjusters can modify. You may or may not have that. You may have that as an automated field, but for us, we do give them the option of changing the tax reportable status. In this case, because it's going to a person, it does default to not reportable. I'm going to select the reserve line that we already have set up for her for collision, and I'm going to make this a partial payment, and I will make it in the amount of $200. And the only thing left to do is go to the next screen. And in this case, we have a memo field that is a free-form field, and we've chosen to send this information to Snapsheet for them to then send to Sarah with the email, and I can put whatever information I want in here for her. So I'm going to put in to replace garage door opener. And when I hit finish, the payment's issued. So here's our $200 payment here. You can see that it's in awaiting submission status right now, which is kind of our internal way of saying we sent it to Snapsheet, but we haven't had a response yet. If I step off and I step back, lo and behold, I've already gotten the new payment number, which means I've already received a transaction back from Snapsheet, and you can see my status is now changed to issued. This payment has now been issued, and email has gone out to Sarah, and she can put that information in the email in order to collect her payment. We added some additional fields to our payment detail screen. So for instance, we have a Snapsheet status field here so that we're able to capture that. Right now it shows as unknown. The first transaction we got back from Snapsheet gives us the payment number. We don't actually have an official status until the next transaction comes back, which might be a couple of minutes later. But that'll give the adjuster a place to come to find out, is this, what is the status of this payment? Is it awaiting additional information from the payee? Has the payee sent the information to Snapsheet, but the payment hasn't been processed yet? Has the payment been processed, et cetera?
Thanks, Jeff, for providing that live demonstration, showing the seamless integration, kind of highlighting certain kind of decision points in there as well for the design. So I think next here, we're going to walk through and talk about really kind of items afterwards. So what are some transformation and implementation keys? So with digital payments and digital workflows comes new statuses. You're awaiting infos, waiting signatures, it's ready to send, it's sent, it's failed, picking that all up systematically and automatically as well. At Snapsheet, we find this is one of the more significant mindset changes, as carrier systems and processes are largely defined by paper check draft, print, issue, cash, void, stop, world. With a digital flow, the statuses are not only regarding the payment method, but also the payee's actions. So a couple items here I wanted to highlight. I think one is really what Jeff kind of highlighted in the demonstration is maintaining those existing Mo statuses, but then also adding some additional information like a Snapsheet status regarding the flow along with a timestamp as well for some additional information to the adjuster.
Yeah, we saw tremendous value in having both. Certainly, our data warehouse really wanted us to keep our existing statuses. So by mapping Snapsheet statuses to our existing statuses, we were able to maintain that kind of financial integrity over time. But having the additional Snapsheet statuses showing for the adjusters really gives them much better insight as to precisely where in the process a payment is.
So second here is real-time payments in a batch reconciliation world. And this, particularly with push-to-debit, is a critical item, particularly with utilizing webhooks. So similar to statuses, this is a transition feed as well, particularly on the data feed side. So with push-to-debit comes real-time updates flowing back very quickly, and sometimes in less than a second with multiple changes. This can be a difference here. On the right side, we have a sample data flow. One of the big items is the difference that a payee can take to respond versus the system to actually execute the process, confirm, post, and update the carrier back, kind of hitting multiple parties here. So similar to the payment creation is Snapsheet being step one, made aware of that payment creation, and then engaging that payee. That payee response range can range between 5 minutes to 72 hours. So definitely a time gap there. Once we obtain the payment information via the secure payment portal, Snapsheet receives it, and then updates the carrier back that, hey, this payment is now ready to send. Right afterwards, it's immediately sending a call to bank, in this instance, KeyBank, who that's then processing the funds and posting them then immediately to the payee, receiving that confirmation back, letting Snapsheet know, who lets the carrier now, Mo in this instance as well, that it was sent and completed. Those calls, processing and posting the push-to-debit can all happen in less than a second. So in that instance, Mo is receiving kind of multiple updates very quickly. And that's really the power of real-time payments. The great news is it posts real time. The other side is you're getting real-time updates from a data flow side as well, and just utilizing and being aware of that. Next here is, I think, on the digital workflow that Jeff, you highlight a little bit, and maybe you can touch on a little bit more regarding the payment information or information required for a digital flow being email and phone number.
Right. There's just, there's a few additional fields that need to be there that would not need to be there for a paper check. Conversely, you don't need to have an address for this individual. You just need to have the email address and the phone number. So, one of the things we did as part of this was really re-emphasizing to our FNOL team the value in capturing email addresses, the value in capturing all those phone numbers at FNOL. Yeah, because they're just an essential part of the payment process now.
Yeah, I think with that too, this is a side benefit as carriers are obtaining and kind of getting email and phone number right up front in the process, knowing they're going to issue a digital payment later on. So do you prefer your home or your mobile, and identifying that up front along with a current email? So lastly, I think here is designing with user in mind. I think Mo did an exceptional job of this and going through this process. And there's a couple items here that we can talk through. One is utilizing the existing tools, fields, and terms. So I think as you saw, that minimizes the change management, becomes less of a change, particularly if you're used to issuing checks throughout your career. Say for 20 years, I've been issuing checks. Now here's ACH and automated flow, and there's this real-time payment as well. Next is starting small with small teams. So we started in our Snapsheet web portal with auto and a property team here to kind of really get champions and lessons learned. And so that way Mo was telling Mo associates in the rollout the success stories, not a Snapsheet. So kind of Mo championing it, not necessarily Snapsheet. Third is really support the end user. Understand that this is a process change. This can be more difficult for certain staff than for others, and everybody can have different needs. So with that is just understanding the opportunity to create payments in a UAT environment. I know Mo did a great job with that. Being able to share screens with certain SMEs, making everybody feel comfortable so they had this tool, understand its power, and be able to service the members best. And then fourth here, I think, is really adapting to unanticipated workflows. And I asked Jeff to share a particular instance on this as well, as I think it shows just how in payments, you really need to understand the details and then also being able to understand how to adapt to that as well.
Absolutely, David. So One thing I will recommend is test, test, test. Have your very specific written out test cases and come up with every scenario you possibly can test, and understand that even though you're going to do that, you're going to miss something. I can promise you, you probably will, because I know we did. So one thing is understanding that there's going to be unanticipated things that are going to come up, and just be willing to track those things and roll with it. Utilize your SMEs, utilize your experts to ensure that you can get to the root cause and fix those problems. The example we wanted to share was just, it was kind of an obscure example, but it's something that can come up, and it's the kind of thing that can have an impact. When a user, in our case, creates a final payment as a paper check, and then immediately after that creates an ACH as a final payment on the same exposure, what was happening is, because the ACH was an instantaneous payment, the ACH was going out and the exposure was closing. But then when our payment batch ran to print the checks, we got an error. And what basically happened is ClaimCenter couldn't accept a final check being issued on an exposure that was already closed. And as a result, the payment got stuck and it didn't get sent to our check issuing software. So that's just an example. It's a random kind of test case that you would not expect to come up very often, but we had it happen 3 or 4 times in the first couple of weeks, and certainly was not something we anticipated. We were able to come up with a workaround for our users, which was simply do the ACH as a partial, and do the check as a final, and it'll take care of itself. And that bought us enough time to be able to actually do our fix, test the fix extensively, and then get it into production.
Yeah, I asked Jeff to kind of share that story, as I know in working with carriers, the Snapsheet team ends up asking a lot of questions at times, and making sure we understand the details, and making sure the carrier understands the details, and are you sure that happens, or what if this happens? I think with particularly payments and flow of funds, like, these things matter, and that's the perspective we work with carriers on and bringing to it. I think it's a really good example of just maybe running into an unanticipated workflow, but then kind of just solving it as well. It's not a showstopper. It's just understanding that certain things can happen, and then being able to tackle that in a post-launch scenario. Perfect. Well, thanks everyone for attending part 1 of this payments breakout session. I want to extend my appreciation for Mutual of Enumclaw and Jeff specifically for joining Snapsheet in discussion today. Well, welcome everyone to part 2 of the payments breakout session focused on claim payments. In this segment, we're going to be focusing on change management topics, especially in the insurance industry, which traditionally is used to a paper check process and culture. And with me here, I'm very excited to have Stephen DeChico, the Claims Innovation Champion from Zurich North America. Stephen?
Hey, David. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here to discuss payments and this topic within the industry. As David said, my name is Stephen DeChico from Zurich North America. Over the last 10 years at Zurich, my career has spanned multiple roles inside claims and operations. In the last couple of years, I've been working with a lot of insurtechs like Snapsheet.
Thanks, Stephen. So with that, I think let's just dive right into the discussion. And to level set first, we wanted to provide an overview of the commercial insurance payments challenges. So from a Snapsheet perspective, Zurich's situation really mirrors the broader industry, and specifically with commercial P&C carriers. I'll let Stephen explain Zurich's situation a little bit more.
Thanks, Dave. I think from a claims perspective, we see these 3 main attributes we have up here. First of all, we're always dealing with multiple claim payment entry points because of the different kind of personas we pay throughout the claims process. For that reason, we've had a lot of different legacy systems that have been up and running in our industry in many different carriers. So every situation is unique, and especially for Zurich, for as long as we've been around and how large a company we have. And as it is, the industry is a little bit behind in the P&C space with digital payment adoption. We see that our legacy systems, they limit functionality and engagement, and it takes a little bit of rethinking of how we're doing things to increase our efficiencies. And if you look at personal lines, going back to the first comment about the multiple claim payment entry points, you really have a much more direct payment, a limited number of personas that you do in commercial insurance.
So I think for the fun part here, in working with carriers, there's lots of hurdles, can be hurdles in the process, right? So some are technical and others are really change management, the people side. So specifically, we're going to jump and talk about the change management and the people side. So with large carriers, we see carriers worry not about technical items or the payees wanting digital adoption, but worried about kind of, from an internal claims staff or process perspective. It's a new process, it's a new technology, it's a new way of engaging with those customers. So often the discussion comes up about it, if we build it, are they going to use it, or how do we know we're going to get there? In this instance, we're Kevin Costner on our request for the Field of Dreams, except the Field of Dreams isn't in Iowa, it's digital payments.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love the analogy. So, when we started working with Snapsheet with you, it was nice to kind of get some of that thought leadership, because you had, been through the process before. It was really nice to have that kind of sounding board to kind of see what was, best practice that you had seen in the market, and figure out, from our perspective, how can we get our CPs to ensure that their workloads are going to get better, or their work that they're doing is going to be more focused on what they should be doing by making an efficient payment process. And, for that, obviously also is testing whether or not the customer actually wants to be paid digitally. So it's, the idea of if you build it, they will come is correct. We got kind of lucky because we were able to kind of build into an idea with some kind of model of where we wanted to be in the end, already existing from Snapsheet's work with other carriers.
So digging in with a more granular level, there are really four main topics which we see across the insurance industry from a hurdles perspective. And I think these align well, and Steven's going to walk through them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak, for what we've had, and what we've been a carrier for a long time, and we've had, a lot of paper centric check processes, going back a long time. And, I think, from our conversations, David, and my conversations with colleagues and other people in the market, there's been a lot of attempts at doing EFT previously. And I mean, you can use a term like lackluster, I see here, that's fair. But, it's really like about getting it right for today. And I think COVID kind of put an extra bit of emphasis on how we need to be doing this and why. And then, of course, I mean, you get into this idea of our footprint and with the volume of payments we're doing. It is a big impact on the environment, and it impacts our staff as well. But going over to the COVID piece right now, with workforce in transition, we are virtual, so we can't rely on paper-based initiatives anymore. And I think that across all of the insurtech landscape and most carriers right now, everyone's embracing as much digital transformation as they can, because we don't have a choice anymore. So it's kind of interesting that we started this with you a little bit back, and now it's kind of pushing us over the finish line, or towards the finish line a little faster than we had originally anticipated due to the pandemic.
So understanding those hurdles and challenges in the situational reality, so Snapsheet and Zurich found to do an exceptional job in leveraging the communication, data, and metrics. So we kind of want to start with those, a couple of communication items, data, and then really taking that data and leveraging it into metrics as well. So Steven, I think Zurich did a great job on the SharePoint collaboration. Do you want to talk through this?
Yeah, I think, a big part of any change management for us starts with, knowing our internal customer as well, as we're going through a proof of concept or a pilot, and, giving them a space for feedback. So, internally, we created a website where we're able to provide some key champions that can help guide their colleagues into this new process. And then, ask our claims professionals to give us direct feedback on what's working, what's not working for them. An advantage of a strategic partnership or this insurtech space that is now disrupting the insurance industry is that you have an opportunity to be a little more iterative than we were in the past. So, making sure we have the ideas for process improvement back to us in a timely manner so we can get the revisions out and get the issues worked out. And then, using other visual aids such as videos or diagrams to help with the process after the training. And then, we had an FAQ that we added for the most common questions. And that's been a really helpful tool for us. And we've received a lot of really great feedback from the CPs on what we still need to improve moving forward.
I think building on that inclusive collaboration was really using that in an agile iterative cycle, which increased the agility over the course for course corrections and kind of looped everybody consistently into the process and feedback loop off each other. So I think one of the first things that happened was really soliciting user feedback, Stephen, and kind of encouraging lots of people from the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, it goes back to that first thing I said about the internal customer, right? As a carrier, on the operations side, you do have your technical folks that you want to make sure that they're heard and you're really understanding their problems. And then recognizing the folks that are really getting in there and rolling up their sleeves to help understand the process and help us improve. And these wins could be really large. We had, huge breakthroughs of just how they were, introducing the product to someone first time using it and giving them a little bit of coaching there, and then having a big win there is really great. And then, test different approaches to this. What does make a customer feel comfortable? What are the customers saying? Take that feedback and then figure out what the mean is versus what outliers are. I think a lot of times in change management and innovation, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that kind of muddies up, creates a little bit of static in the data. So, for us, we like to measure things and just do things iteratively. So we're testing and learning over and over, once again, being iterative. And it's been great having you on board, David, to assist in that process.
So building on that agile cycle and inclusion is using data to help drive the change management and utilization with the digital workflows. So with digital workflows comes much more granularity and data availability. And that can be used in a change management process to understand where users are at and help develop both initial ramp up and the post-management item. So in the initial ramp up, you can use that data to look at, have all the users and team kind of utilize the new digital payments process? Are they using one method of payment over another? And also, are there bottlenecks that need to be simplified, clarified, or otherwise explained to the process for the team? So is one team having longer cycle times or items like that versus other ones, and is helping to explain them and help phrase to the customer what the process is going to be. On the post setup side, it's really kind of helping to capture those metrics, which can vary by data, by business line and team, but look at why is one team outperforming another team on the same claim type where there really shouldn't be, right? Or why is one team different than another team for very different claim types within the same line of the business? And that can also be used to help look at what are the best benchmarks that we then need to establish going forward in that post setup period. So with data comes, I think, metrics, and this is also very new in the payment space regarding payee cycle times, funds posting, when are people responding, by what percentages, by type, not just printing a check and it's mailed. And this comes because it's an end-to-end digital payment engagement, and with the user responding back and having a time and data stamp on it as well.
One thing that just jog my memory, when we started, we were doing those weekly summarization reporting, cross-functional for all of our stakeholders to highlight really what the adoption was, penetration, business impact, and learning, having insight through the platform to how long it's taking someone to sign up to get their payment, see how long it took the payment to go out, understanding which teams were getting the highest adoption of electronic payment, and I think a perfect example of that really helped with using the reporting to calibrate an expectation is learning that 3 out of 10 payees will reject electronic payment still. They still will prefer check. Understanding that, if you know your total payment volume and knowing that only 7 out of 10, and that's been the mean thus far. I think it will change as the industry keeps changing, and the longer people are in this digital world, I think the number will change. But for right now, that was a huge takeaway we got after a deeper analysis, and knowing that 30% people are going to still say, no, you know what, just mail me the check. I really want to wait 10 days to be paid. That was kind of shocking, but good for us to know, because it helps us understand that there's certain things our internal folks can't change. The customer doesn't want to be paid electronically. You pay them with a check. That's fine. But just having that data point, it gives us some peace of mind of knowing what our true goal is for penetration and adoption in the electronic payment landscape.
Yeah, and I don't think I could have said that better there, Stephen. I think it's just understanding all the tools at your disposal, right? And then how much that tool is utilized from a payment perspective, and to help drive that outcome and what that customer is wanting as well.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank everybody for attending, and specifically Stephen here for co-hosting this segment. Next up, we're going to have Stephen, Jeff, and myself. We'll be live for a payments roundtable and Q&A from everyone. So if there's any questions, please join us, and we look forward to talking with everyone. Thanks everybody for joining the session back live here now. And what we'll do is, Stephen, as I said, Stephen and Jeff will be joining here, and so we'll be on screen and can kind of take questions. So we can either I'll monitor the chat area, and we can go from there. So if someone does have a question as well, you can also, I think, just unmute yourself and kind of go from there. So as we'll wait, I think one of the items kind of wanted to jump in, both Stephen and Jeff. A lot of you kind of really highlighted the people side, which I like a lot in talking about that. I think that's why it was both in both the topics you kind of talked about heavily. Is there a particular example you all have, or maybe the kind of the integration team, implementation team heard that really validated them from the frontline claims folks and kind of made them feel good about, like, okay, great, this is happening. Everybody, it is what we thought, and just encouraging for the rest of the team too, to help kind of drive it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can give you two real quick, David. One is, we had a success very early on with a payment on one of the wildfire CAT claims. Obviously, we've had a lot of wildfires up here in the Northwest, and we had a situation where we were able to get a contents advance to one of our members. And from when we entered the payment in ClaimCenter to when they received it in their bank account, it was 11 minutes. And that was on a push-to-debit payment, right? So we were able to get a $2,500 advance to somebody who was literally burned out of their home within 10 minutes, and they were able to use that money then to take care of their immediate needs. The second one, real quick, is just when we looked at usage, it was very interesting to me. Obviously, we had some early adopters who were very much all in on it, and then, as you normally expect, there were some people that were a little late to the game. Our most frequent user on the auto physical damage side was one of our most tenured adjusters and somebody who was the most resistant to change. But by keeping the process very simple and streamlined, so it was exactly the same payment process she was used to, she saw the benefit to the member immediately, and she also saw the benefit to herself, which is, I get this payment out faster. So why wouldn't I want to use this? So it was very interesting to see somebody who was normally resistant to the new technology and the changes embraced it immediately and with great success.
I could add to that as well, echoing a lot of the same, that the speed of the payment is huge, but validating really the lack of customer phone calls about whereabouts to check is a huge one right away, that I noticed my phone's reading less. And the second one would be the willingness for people to receive large dollar amounts electronically. That was something that was a little bit, we weren't sure, are people going to really want a large, six-figure settlement amount via electronically? And the answer is yes, they want the money as fast as they can get it.
Yeah, I think that's a great example there. Whether it's $10, $2,500, a couple $100,000, people still want their money the way that they want to receive it. There's a couple questions here. We'll jump into it here. One of them is just regarding, for claim payment types, like, what do we see as the most what people are requesting for the next 2 to 3 years? So I'll start here. I think from my side, in seeing where people are at, it's also knowing kind of just what is the adoption on the consumer side, which is one of the reasons why we talk about Snapsheet prefers push-to-debit as an example, because lots of people have debit cards, they understand what it is. But I'll maybe kind of kick it over to Stephen and Jeff to see what your folks are hearing as, hey, can I get paid via this or that?
I haven't heard much. We haven't heard a lot of feedback of anyone looking for payment options outside of ACH or push-to-debit. I'm sure those exist. There's dozens of different payment methods we could use, but we really haven't heard too much feedback from people saying, oh, well, if you can't pay me via X, then just send me a check.
Yeah, somewhat the same. I mean, there has been a little bit, it's interesting, semantics around wire versus ACH, like that has been an interesting talking point. People think they're getting paid wire and it's ACH, so they're providing the wrong information. That's something like weird that I found shocking. But we've heard a little bit about, will you have Venmo or Chase QuickPay up and running at any point? But nothing that's like overwhelmingly very similar to Jeff. It's just been ACH, great, send it on over.
There's a lot of questions here, so we'll kind of get going. And I think we have maybe a couple minutes left, and then they're going to send us back to the main room for the closing session here. One is about lien holders and a vehicle property. What I can say in exploring this with our banking partners is it is amazing that there is not an automated process, that even that lien holder process for, say, a mortgage is a separate third party that is handling it still via manually. Snapsheet has not seen like an industry solution. I think this is where everybody is still struggling with it, which is why it is such always a question guaranteed to come up on the claim payments. Another question here, payments use other parties such as auto body shops. Yes, so we have a large pre-enrolled vendor network. I know Jeff and Steven, we work both exclusively with your teams, identify which vendors. Jeff, I know like your auto network was a big one that we worked to enroll even during COVID. So I think that was one of the interesting parts where launching both of you in the same time period relatively was calling businesses during COVID and asking them, would you like to enroll for digital payment? And I remember someone from our vendor team calling and someone was resistant, and his response was like, are you really going to like Lysol a paper check right now? And the answer was no. And so they immediately enrolled. But it is there too. I think we focus on the consumer or the insured side as like, what I'll say is maybe Jeff and Steve, you can chime in. I think that's like primarily number one payee. You want to make sure vendors are nice, but they're kind of like a secondary payee.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, we certainly piloted this for our salvage team in total loss, and so Copart is a registered vendor with Snapsheet, and that made it immediately. We had the ability to not have to send dozens and dozens and dozens of individual checks to Copart all the time. Yes, the vendor part is an important piece of it, but really for our standpoint, we're focusing very heavily on the kind of the individual, the member, and the claimant experience.
So real question here about auditing standpoint, and I thought this would be a good one. How do you deal with an oversight processes from an auditing standpoint? And a lot of times this is actually not something Snapsheet's involved in, so I'm really interested to hear your responses. I guess, Steven, do you want to go first? I know we've supplied lots of data, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like a lot of it has to do with, I mean, it's really just a different way of reconciling for our treasury or FinOps departments, right? So we have regular standard audits, and with Snapsheet, we built in natural reconciliation through basically, if there's anything that's not going to balance out, it errors out, so we can look at it manually and see what happened. And that's usually very simple things. Someone provided the wrong banking routing information. So the payment looks like it left and never left. We just fix the, balance it, and then everything's fine. But we have a lot of controls, as Jeff probably does. Insurance, everything's highly regulated. That we spent more time, probably, David, with our compliance and regulatory operations and security folks than we did implementing the product, just to make sure that we are getting everything right.
That is definitely a fair statement. I guess Jeff, I'll let you go. Then I have some closing thoughts on that question too.
Yeah, and we've taken some steps too, using the Snap metrics reporting that's available, just to make sure that we're not seeing any unusual traffic, right? Are we seeing the same email address showing up across multiple claims? If we do that, we're going to take a look at those claims and try to figure out, okay, is this legitimately the same claimant or the same member on this claim, or is somebody maybe up to shenanigans, for lack of a better term? So there's definitely those concerns that exist. I mean, fraud would exist with paper checks too, but with digital, people are a little bit more leery of it. So we definitely have some things in place, and you've got some tools that'll be available to you to be able to at least take those first steps in monitoring that.
I think your comment about paper checks is what I was going to kind of wanted to build on. My perspective, kind of being from the outside, working with carriers, is since it's new and everybody's looking again at payments, they forget that this is already an existing process or already happening on the paper check side. It's kind of like it's gravity. You just know it's there. But when you're looking back at it, you're like, well, now you're digital payments, maybe it's faster. And that's where everybody's like, okay, so what's happening? Where are the control points? Okay, maybe there's more controls in digital payments we're finding. So it's better. Question here about 100% of payments being issued digitally or still being some sent via paper. Definitely paper is not going away. Personally, I'll say, I think the kill the check slogan is used way too much and isn't true. You can't kill the check. I think it's just more about enabling more payment methods so that you can pay the people correctly and make it better overall and have them choose, not like we're definitely going to hard steer and too bad. I know that's true for both of you, that you're still issuing lots of checks as well. So I'll move on here. And then someone asked about bulk ACH payments available for vendors as well. So that's also true. That's really just dependent on sending Snapsheet the data or the payment instructions. We have the vendor enrolled. So whether you pay them singular or kind of one-off by claim file or all at once, and go from there. I'll say working with the larger corporations to enroll are always a little bit interesting. I think Jeff could smile. It's a different story from maybe cocktail hour in a conference setting, not a virtual setting. But we'll go from there. So let me pause and see if there's any other last questions. Otherwise, maybe we'll just, I think, kind of wrap up with some, Stephen and Jeff, maybe some kind of lasting advice. I think we've had lots of lessons learned on here, but I don't know if there's anything else that's kind of sticking out that you'd like to highlight.
I think the last thing for me is just to make sure that you've got, some user involvement and you try to make that process as streamlined as possible. Make the payment process as close as you possibly can to the process that your team is used to working today. And if you do that, you're going to find your adoption rates are going to be where they need to be.
And mine would be just how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You're not going to change this overnight. There's a lot of homework to be done. And in this space, you talk about controls, and there's still a lot of people catching up on the regulatory side about how to handle electronic payments. So, how do you prove an electronic payment? These are new questions that we have to so you don't have a copy of a check floating around. So just, be patient with it and take it one bite at a time, because you try to do it all at once, it'll suffocate you.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Stephen, I forgot about that discussion we had. Like, how do you prove if it's digital? Where's the paper? Where's the copy of the paper check? And I think that would be mine, is understanding that you're coming from a check world and that the language, the processes are all defined by that payment method, right? So in digital payments, it's different. I think a lot of times, I think both of you talked a lot about trying to match that process as much as we can. So that way it's less change. But that to me is a big one, is just taking that step back and understanding, well, if just because you do this for checks doesn't mean push-to-debit and ACH are the same. Different payment methods have different rules and different capabilities. And that, I think, is my biggest item I try and always stress in engagements as well. So with this, the session here, I need to start wrapping up. We're going to go back to the main room. I think there's some closing thoughts. Personally, again, want to thank Stephen and Jeff for the session. Actually, everybody for joining as well and answering questions.